use to sign up, and I'll make sure you're dialed in.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
Cool. We just had to restart the recording. That's all. Oh, there you go. Thanks, Steve. Perfect. I also want to, if I look a little squirmy from time to time, I'm having some, a lot of people ask me about hand. Sorry, John, was that it? Did I cover everything? Okay, great. Sorry, I got lost there in the comments. Yeah, so if it looks like I'm a little squirmy from time to time, or if you see my icy hot patch, I'm having some neck and shoulder pain that kind of came on out of nowhere, but it's 40 years of compiled neck pain. So I'm working with a chiropractor, physical therapist, and we're doing these exercises to kind of get me back on track. Steve can tell you there was moments where what's happening, basically, I'll say this, is with my neck being so straight and forward, it's making my trap muscles do all the extra work to kind of pull that back, and giving me pain in the shoulder. It's going down to my my arm. The arm pain's kind of going away because I've been really hitting the exercises. But I'm getting also occasional pins and needles here and there. So he is confident that this routine that we're on is going to be able to tighten some things up, no pun intended, in about 6 months or so. So work on your back and neck health as much as possible, and that'll certainly help. But yeah, Steve, I'm on a methylated vitamin treatment. I do all that stuff, so thanks for that. But yeah, it's a multi-point thing that I'm doing as far as attacking it from supplements, exercise, treatments, and it's great that my doctor only is 5 minutes down the road from my house, so total bonus. But yeah, if you see me kind of uncomfortable from time to time, that's the reason. But I want to share that because some people talk about it. So there we go.
Awesome. Rob, are you here? Rob from Thailand. Rob, are you around? Do you mind jumping in and asking your question? Is that cool?
You hear me okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can.
It's just sorry, the little theory.
No problem.
Well,
Yeah.
I get snagged sometimes when I'm trying to understand flat 3 major substitution. You know, when you go to a flat 3 major chord instead of like like basically your 3 chord. You know how they change it from minor to major? And I would just theoretically, I'm just trying to understand how to. It's that weird thing when like somebody's playing and then they throw in this non-diatonic chord. So I'm just trying to understand, is it coming from a parallel scale, or how to kind of how to envision it, like why does it work? Because people do that a lot. They'll use a major third, like a 3 major chord instead of a 3 minor chord.
Yep.
So I'm just, and like in context, how to conceptually understand why that works. Even
one place that you see it, if you're like in C, for instance, and what he's talking about is in the key of C, we'd have a major chord as our 1, a minor chord as our 2, and then our 3 would be E minor. Same thing we did with our major scale. If you learn that major scale via triads, you'll see all of the 3-note chords in there, and then of course it parlays into the 4-note chords as well. So what he's saying is, we have this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, and that's where we get our 1, 4, 5s, 1, 6, 2, 5s. All those numbers that are floating around are coming from chords built out of the major scale. And he's saying sometimes you'll see like a 3-7 or a 3 major. A lot of times you'll see it as a dominant chord. My question is, what's the next chord after that? Because if the next chord after that is a 6, which would be like an A minor in the key of C, so you might hear 1, 2, 3 dominant to an A minor. But what's happening here, we have the 1. Now we do something called a secondary dominant. And what that means is we ultimately want to get to A minor. But what we can do for every minor chord or any chord is that we can play the 5/7 of the chord we're headed to before that. So you could play C to an A minor. And that's something that, you know, obviously we've heard a million times, but what we can do, it doesn't matter how we do it, we can approach that A minor with the 5 of the 6. So it's the 5/7 of whatever chord you're going to. And a lot of times you'll hear that. I always use that tune that I play, Ophelia by the band. Boards on the windows, mail by the door. Then it goes to a A7. How could anybody leave so quick before? And then what's cool is the E7 is the 5 of A7, and then the A7 is the 5 of D7. So that's one instance where you'll see chords that are not diatonic moving into each other, and that's one of the places that you see them. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Rob?
Well, yeah, I kind of understand Dom 7 sub, but it's more like, you know, like the Beatles will do that. They'll go like from a minor, they'll move to a major, and it won't follow that. That they're not following that function. They're just doing it as like a descending line or something. So it's almost like they're doing kind of this cliche. I should be playing one of them. Yeah.
That's
right.
A pretty common thing where you're playing an A minor. There's something called an A minor major 7, then an A minor 7, and then what's happening is I'm going to a dominant chord from there.
Right. So you're getting the line cliches merged in with the chord progression, which is interesting, right? But I'm just trying to theoretically how to explain that diatonic, non-diatonic. I can say, hey, this is just a passing chord, but it's just like, well, why does the ear accept it? I guess is part of.
I understand. One of the things that a lot of people will do is you could do. It's called modal interchange. This is a pretty far out kind of thing, but I could play anything I want in C major. So that's like 1, 3, 4. Now what I can do there is I could play anything from C minor, which is also E flat major. So that's why sometimes you might hear a move like that. Now why did that work? Because I played an E flat major to a 2, that's in my key, to a C, but I could even go. So what I did there is I took the 1 in E flat, the 2, the 3, and then a 5, and then a 1. So you really have to know your keys to do those. And a lot of times they'll call those cush chords, and where you're basically playing, I think one of my favorite sites is Open Studio. Their videos on YouTube are really great. Adam Manis, the piano teacher on that, is awesome because he'll talk about songs that have modal interchange, like, and then you start to hear it. He starts to explain it, like, I think I can't remember what Hall & Oates song it is. I can't go for that. Say no more, yeah. So the whole song's at a C minor. Twice as nice. But if I'm thinking about to say no more, yeah. Do almost anything. I don't know the chords that you want me to, but it goes from C minor to C major. That's modal interchange. And that's often sometimes what you might be hearing as well. So that's one of two instances. Secondary dominance to chords, modal interchange is another one. But to do it on the fly is pretty hard, but it's if you don't know your keys really well. But I like to mess around like that by just playing like C to maybe A minor. Then I could go B flat, major 7, A minor to a G. Now that B flat major 7, yes, out of the key of C, but it is it's the 5 of E flat major. So you can start playing around with really any chord as long as you're following a little bit of guidelines. So yeah, hopefully that helps a little bit. It's song specific too, where they're
I guess I'm kind of thinking like, is it can I think of it as a parallel scale? Like, how they go major, like A major, A minor, and kind of borrowing a chord from the parallel scale? Is that one way to look at it?
And that if you're doing A major, A minor, then you're doing the modal interchange,
Right.
essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. That's it.
Yeah, if you think about it, shoot me an email through the support, and I'll find that video. It's really, really cool because they do like 5 songs that do modal interchange, and I know that Hall & Oates tune is a perfect example. And that might not totally be what you're looking for, but again, it's song specific a lot of times.
Well, I think you're steering me in a new direction, which is basically what I wanted, so I can do some research, and hopefully it'll just be another facet of looking at that jewel from a different perspective, right, to understand it. So that's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure, dude.
Awesome. Well, I got a couple things actually from the community site, if we want to jump into that real fast.
Yeah.
So Marcus, this is kind of an interesting question. So I'm going to kind of add to this question for you, Corey, a little bit. So Marcus said that you tested the Enigmatic pedal on your YouTube channel, and he had the opportunity to test it also. Great device. And so he's asking, do you think if UA, have you heard anything from UA, if they'll also offer a plug-in on the Enigmatic like they have for the Dream and the Lion? And I'd like to add here that I would like to get your thought on plugins that you've used that you put your stamp behind.
I haven't heard anything about an Enigmatic plugin, but it would be silly for them not to. It's a plugin is the best low overhead, high return product they can make because once it's done, the only thing they might have to do is update it for operating systems or that sort of thing. So yeah, I think you probably will see it, but I have not heard anything. But it took them a while to make the plugins for the Dream, the Ruby, and the Lion. And is that all they did? Did they do another one? The Tweed one they already kind of had, but it's not necessarily called the Woodrow. Now, I tried those. I did not like those at all. I did not like the way they felt and sounded to me. I have a big problem with the Dream one in the sense that I can never get the headroom out of it. It always feels like it distorts too early. But that's kind of emblematic, not enigmatic, of the of what an old Fender does. Like once they get to about 3 on the volume, it just doesn't stay clean. That's what they do. The Enigmatic pedal, what I really liked is I think that's the best one they've made to date, as far as how it feels. It felt as amp-like as it could. And because it's modeled after a Dumble Overdrive Special or several versions of those Dumbles, that was Dumble's whole thing, was to tighten the low end, increase headroom, those kind of things that Fender amps lacked. That's a few of the things that he went in and really started to mod, because some of the best Dumbles, from what I understand, are modified Bassmans and Deluxes and that sort of thing. So I love the Enigmatic as a pedal. I actually just sent a few of them to my friend in California who he plays with, Rob Thomas, the singer of Matchbox 20, and he was asking me all these questions. I was like, I got 4 or 5 of these things. Just take them. I'm not using them. Please figure it out. And if you want one, we'll figure out a way to get it to you. But in any case, don't know about the plugin. I do like the pedal. My seal of approval on plugins. I did a video on the Mixwave version of the 2-Rock Bloomfield Drive. That's the amp right behind me. I know for a fact when Eli was working with them, I'll say this, I know that he's worked with a few plugin companies that just didn't work for him. The Mixwave company he seemed to like, and he said as he was testing it, he had his amp sitting right next to him the whole time, making sure it was close. That plugin's not for everybody, but if you want a big, robust, clean plugin that actually works well with pedals into your interface, I tried that, and it worked really well, like shockingly well. That to me felt good, and most of the people that you're talking about that one will say the same thing. And like the other types of plugins, I tried the Soldano one from what's that company called? Help me out, Neural. It was okay. It was all right. In the Universal Audio world, I always really liked the PT100 from Sir, the Pete Thorne 100 amp. That was really good, and the Friedman Buxom Betty was the other one that I used. And probably some Marshall ones here and there I've used in the past too. The Friedman BE100 was cool also, but I don't use like high gain plugins all that much. But they're certainly fun. Don't be tricked by high gain stuff. High gain stuff always feels better than clean does. It's harder to get the headroom and the feel of a clean amp than it is an overdriven amp. That's probably just because of the distortion in the digital clipping and all that kind of stuff. So there you go. Good one, Steve. Thank you.
Awesome. We got one more, and then we'll get back to the chat here with some questions here. So Kevin couldn't be here today, but he threw something up about an hour ago. So he has a couple technique questions, and he said he understands you're using acrylics for hybrid picking. So how are you striking the string? He's asking, are you striking them with just the acrylics? He's right now keeping his nails short and striking with fingertip flesh. So just kind of want to get your technique on that. And then the second part of the question was, what are you doing transitioning with the pick? Where are you putting the pick when you transition from that? Kind of what's your MO?
I don't have them on right now because what I usually do with my acrylic nails is I wear them until I feel like they're starting to break at any moment, and then I rip them off, and it'll be hopefully enough time in between when I have to play a gig or do a performance or something like that. So they usually last for 2.5 weeks. And what I do is I cut them and apply them so they're just over top of my fingernail, my current fingernail, because I just want them for a little bit of extra strength. And I'm not doing anything differently with my pick. I do have a technique with my pick that I've always done where I can kind of tuck it underneath my knuckle. But 9 out of 10 times I don't do that unless I really want a finger style kind of thing. Like I'll do that, but most of the time and I don't exclusively play every note hybrid style. It's there as another tool. And it's very useful for me because I've been incorporating it for probably over 20 years now as a player. I'm just used to it. So I don't put it away and I don't pull it out. It's always available. It's kind of a weird way to say it, but it's always the fingers are always ready to strike whenever I need them to. But it's a sound thing too. You know, if I want to straight down home blues. But if I went, I'm using my fingers there, and that might be a combination. It's really when I want to turn it on or turn it off. And hybrid picking was my way. I was never a good, fast, speedy shredder player with a pick. And then as I got to be into country guitar playing, the hybrid picking was like, oh wow, I can adapt this to any style of playing, because I would hear Brent Mason play these jazz lines with hybrid picking, and I was like, well, if he can do that, then maybe I can translate it to any style, which is what I tried to do, and it's kind of worked out for me. So yeah, the nails are pretty short, and I don't use them all the time. They're just there when I need them, and I couldn't even really tell you when, other than those examples I just gave. So hopefully that helps.
Awesome.
Chatters.
Yeah, so we got, Doug had a good question here. He said the question of noodling gets a bad rap, but are you aware of some theory and scales to really expand? I think there was a couple words kind of mixed here, but what do you do instead of just noodling on the couch? What should we do when we pick up a guitar?
Well, that's kind of why I started doing these major scale lessons that will expand, because that's a way to kind of, you're not noodling, you're actually doing something that is like, can be translated into, into your playing in the future. It's also helping you understand the instrument. There's nothing wrong with noodling. Just don't make your practice time noodling. Noodling is fine because it gives you a relationship with your guitar. Like I could find something here. Like if I could noodle with this lens cover for an hour, and I would know every ounce of this lens cover when I was done, or my remote control or something, right? Now, not incredibly exciting, right? But I would know this thing inside and out. So when you're noodling, you're just kind of building your relationship. Now, that's the thing, though. You just can't make noodling your practice time. That's why we talk so often here about the 10-minute practice rule. Really focus on something that is intentional for 10 minutes, set a timer, and that's going to really help. Noodling is great because it's fun. It's getting you a relationship with your instrument. It's training your ears all the time, and of course your hands. And to add to that, speaking of practice, I can't remember if you're on the chat or if you're on the call, please let me know. I don't remember who recommended it, but the book a couple calls ago about the neurological learning for musicians. I'm just jumping into that book and I love it. It is really great. I'll find it. it's still in my backpack from my NAMM stuff. So yeah. If you're on the call, whoever had that recommendation of that book about learning for musicians, a woman who's a violinist at a conservatory wrote it. And, she's really, really great. I love her writing. It's been good. And what's cool is she tells you up front that, hey, I'm a classical musician, not an improviser. So what's cool is she's coming out with that, but I can totally see the correlation between being an improvising musician or a hobby musician as opposed to a strict classical musician working on a score on a page. So the information is easy to translate. So I'm really enjoying that book. So whoever recommended it, thank you.
Yeah, very cool. And then we have another question here. I love this. It's like the practice session. I think we're kind of into the practice section and improve our practice. It says, been toying with the idea of taking drum lessons and try and improve my sense of rhythm as a guitarist. What would you recommend? Would you recommend that step? And if so, should I go with some live lessons or try to pick it up online? And then once again, I'll expand that to, as guitar players, what do you feel like is the most advantageous, if we wanted to pick up a second instrument, in your opinion, what's the most advantageous one?
I definitely think piano or drums is great. And you can fit bass in there too. There's definitely, bass is great because you're going to be in triad and arpeggio land. It's going to be, that's all, tons of bass playing is developed around that. The thing I liked, I did play drums for a little while. I had a kit. I had a couple mentors that were drummers, and I would always hang out with drummers more so than guitar players. I always felt like they listened to cooler music. They talked about things I felt were more relevant at the time. You get a bunch of guitar players in a room and you're going to run out of air and space. And there might be some ego involved as well. But I always wanted to be around the drummers. I thought they were cool because of what they were talking about. And So drumming helped me a lot in understanding how to read and understand rhythm. Excuse me. One of the things that you can do if you do take drum lessons is that, let's say they have you in a book with like snare drum rudiments. Now that might read on one line of music. What I would do is I would take a snare drum book like that. I can't remember what I would do. I don't even remember where they are anymore. And you know, you might have a metronome, and then you might have the rhythms read that, 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 you know, that kind of a thing. So what I would do is I would play one note and I'd read that snare drum line, because you're not reading a pitch, you're just reading a rhythm. So I would go 3, 4. So reading that one note helps you read the rhythms, and you don't have to worry about any pitch. So you're developing your reading skills on guitar just by reading that music as it's going by. And it's going to internally build, I always call it like the ticker tape of rhythm. There's always rhythm happening in music. The instruments are telling it what to emphasize. You know, so that, you know, if it's a ticker tape going 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a, that's happening through all music. You have to tell what instruments are going to go boom, bap, boom, boom, bap, boom, bum, boom, bum, boom, boom, bum, da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na, da-da-da-da-da. That's all divisible by those 16th notes going by. And if you play to a snare drum book with one string and one note, that's going to, over time, start to build a pulse inside of you, and that's really, really valuable. So I love anybody that's going to take drum lessons too. I freaking love drums. If I had more space and more storage, I'd have drums, and I love cymbals and snare drums. I just think it's the coolest thing ever. I'm a big drum fan. So there you go.
All right, the question of the day here. I'm new here, Jeff. Jeff, if you're still in the Zoom, welcome. Oh, you are. I see you right there. Thanks for joining the VIPs. It's awesome to have you, my friend. Found us via the Arpeggio boot camp. Good way to come in. Good way to come in, which gave the practice structure I usually lack. And really, that's the goal of these boot camps, is to give some practice structure. So I'm really glad you found that. Any more boot camps coming down the pike?
We don't have, well, there's some news about that, and Steve will be able to help me explain this. I don't have any boot camps scheduled in the near future, although we heard exactly what you're saying from so many people. That's why, as a VIP, Jeff, if you look at this major scale workout that I'm doing, I'm trying to roll out lessons for VIPs that the rest of the public doesn't get, but you guys will get once a week or a couple times a month. Because I'm like, okay, well, if I can drip these out, and it's not really like a course or a boot camp or something that you'll get this in your paid membership. Boot camps are a special product that everybody has to, that we charge for because of the live experience that we do with the Zoom calls and so forth. But as a member, you're going to get these sort of like included lessons that roll out in a weekly or semi-weekly basis. So although there might not be a traditional boot camp in the near future, there will be lessons rolling out at a more like periodic, way. So hopefully that helps. Now, the Arpeggio Bootcamp really was a hit with I think we had like 180 people between two boot camps, Steve, something like that, because we have to limit it to only 100 seats per enrollment due to the Zoom call can only handle 100 people. What's tricky is that's a premium product that we offer at half price to the boot camp, the VIPs, right, Steve? Is that what we did? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we had like almost sold out of both of them. Each time we do it, it almost sells out, like 190 something. So what we're gonna
do is we're gonna polish that up and make it a course, but without the connection between the Zoom calls. So folks that are you as VIPs, once it's released as a boot camp or as a course, will have access to it. Those who did the live boot camp got to have the curated lessons coming out weekly, the Zoom calls with me, you know, I would probably, I don't know what I would say, but like, that's why I don't teach private lessons one-on-one, because what I have to charge to pull that time away from creating content is more than a lot of people would want to spend most of the time. So the boot camp is a nice happy medium to get a live Zoom with me, and anybody can take it, not just VIPs. But now if we're going to tighten up the boot camp to make it a more VIP centric product, the Zoom lessons will be out of it. I'm probably going to have to re-record a few things, and we'll make it a package so now everybody can benefit from it as well. Yeah.
Awesome. And it is worth noting, if we do another boot camp, VIPs, you guys always get first right of refusal. So we actually always send the email out to you guys that it's open for registration a couple days before. We normally announce it on one of these Zoom calls, but we always send out an email, because I think the first boot camp, we had like 80-something% of the people in it were VIPers.
Oh, yeah. They're all VIPs.
So, it was awesome. So, yeah, so if something does come down the pipe, you are in the right place, Jeff, to get access to it as soon as possible. So that's cool. Richard,
go ahead.
Sorry,
let me finish. The boot camp is the most arduous product for me to put together, to put out. So it takes a while, and it's a lot of content, which is why you won't see too many of them. But what I can do with the major scale workouts, we're going to do some other things that are more of a sort of weekly release type of stuff in the future. That's a little easier for me to get shot and edited. The boot camp is tough because it's the most labor intensive course style thing I've ever done. So it's a challenge, but I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
Awesome. Richard mentioned that he's using the App Genius Jam Tracks for different rhythms. I use that also. It's really good if you need a little thing on your phone.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Cool. It comes with some pretty good free ones, and the paid ones are super inexpensive, so pretty good.
So it's a jam track app.
Yeah, it's an
a jam
app. Yeah.
App? Okay,
exactly.
That's cool.
More like drum tracks.
That's all right.
But you can find something for everything. It's great.
That's great.
Yeah. And then, Doug's asking, he said, I love your blues rhythm courses. Your courses seem to emphasize the fact that rhythm carries the song. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on this, Corey, because I know we've had this
Where's
talk.
That?
So,
am I missing that in the chat? Is that where it is?
Or the very bottom. It's the second to last one right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have music without rhythm, in my opinion. Even a Gregorian chant has some sort of rhythm to it. If it may be a very long spaced out rhythm, but there's still some semblance of rhythm to it. So this is where I get away with sounding better than I am a lot of times, is that I know I have a solid sense of rhythm. When you go to a music store and you're really nervous about what to play to test out the guitar because everybody can hear you, get a tempo first. It could be 1, 2, 3, and you could play. So the pulse is there. That's rhythm. These are chords played to a rhythm, because a lot of people think chords means rhythm, but you got to have rhythm when you're playing single lines too. I can go 3, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so all that was here. And for, where is he? Where is he? Hold on. Was it Bill? Can't remember who said about the drums. Ted. Yeah, that's what you want to build up. You want to build that internal sense of rhythm if you're playing drums. And everybody thinks drums are just, they're the rhythm, and you're not. We're all feeling the same rhythm. And having that, a good basis of that, no matter how simple, is really going to make it sound like you know what you're doing. Because if you go here, this is what I hear a lot of people do. That's not rhythm. This is rhythm. It was either in this call, one of these calls, or on a YouTube channel video or something, where somebody said, "Why is he counting loudly off to himself?" I do that all the time. I always go 1, 2, 3, 4, because that is setting up. That's setting up my backbone. You know, we would see years ago, if you watch a big band conductor, you know, from, doesn't matter what era, you know, you'll see conductors, a lot of times they'll do this. They'll go, like if it's a big jazz number, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. They have to internalize it first, and they have to make it audible. Because a lot of times you'll find yourself in these situations where somebody will go, all right, we're going to count off the song. And they'll go, oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, that 1, 2, that's so much time in between that count. You know, you want to hear it 1, a 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't want to go a 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. There's too much sustain in that. We want nice short feel, you know. So that's why sometimes I'll go 1, 2, a 1, 2. You know, so I'll start really internalizing the rhythm before I attempt to play my instrument, you know. And that's, you know, why a drummer clicks his sticks, gives everybody the feel, right? Starts with him or her, but it's got to, you know, translate to the rest of the band. Good. And Ted said, that's what I'm looking for. Good. Well, drum lessons will probably help. At least it'll make you aware of the rhythm, which is so important.
Yeah, well, I think we're all caught up on the chat. So if there's any...
Marty, we got one from Marty. Said, I was told by a music teacher when I was a kid to always tap your foot to the rhythm. I mean, tapping your foot is great. And it's great. I do it all the time unconsciously. And you'll see a lot of musicians do that too. One quick story was when I was in the swing band and we had 7 people in the band. Was it 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it was 7. 3-piece horn section. And all of the horn players were like heavy music school grads, North Texas, all that stuff. And the trombone player was going for his PhD, and he was going to the University of Pittsburgh for his doctorate. And he said, everyone stop tapping your foot. And I was like, wow, really? Because what he was talking about was like, if you were to take 5 drum machines and you started them all at the same time, eventually they would start to drift because they're all keeping their own time and they're not hive-minding it. You're not listening to the main thing. So he said, everyone stop tapping your foot. So we did. And the band started to swing and feel and sound even better because we were just kind of relaxing in what the drummer was doing. And it was a really interesting experiment. But I definitely think tapping your foot is totally fine for most things, particularly as a timekeeper for yourself. But in that instance, it was a really interesting way to kind of make sure we listened to everybody as opposed to just being in our own worlds. So thought I'd share that. Oh, we got some hands up.
Let's do it. John, why don't you... John, why don't you jump in here real quick, and then James, you're up next.
Yeah, so Corey, Steve, the whole idea of rhythm is something that, if I kind of analyze my playing, is lacking. And I think I spent a lot of time learning arpeggios, you know, learning music theory. Like if I played this one note that's going to fit right, that's going to make the whole thing sound better, right? And I've even heard some things that say, you can play the wrong notes, but if you play it in the right rhythm, it's going to sound okay. I think there's probably a lot of truth to that. So,
I'd agree.
So instead of learning arpeggios and learning other things, you know, some of the courses that you've put out are great. Don't get me wrong. How do you sort of learn that rhythm thing? How do you sort of tailor your practice where you're really focusing on being in a groove and less concerned about what notes am I playing?
Well, one of the things I like to do is, this is when you make a course and you have the word beginner in it, they're always they're not always duds, but people think they're beyond a beginner because they can play a bar chord or a power chord. But in my like in my beginner blues rhythm course, I have people playing a blues with power chords. And that's groove right there. And then I might have them go to the 4 chord. Right? So that's relatively easy, but not, it's easy to physically do, but not necessarily easy to internalize the rhythm. So everything that you've learned, John, up to this point, you could go back and maybe, and like, I think it was Bill that chimed in on the chat about, let's see here. The book that we were talking about is called Learn Faster, Perform Better, A Musician's Guide to the Neuroscience of Practicing by Molly Gabriel. So I'm reading that book. And one thing she says, which I really like, is that you need to focus on the problem areas. Don't worry about what you can do well. So let's say you can play a power chord all day, right? Let's say you can do it. But can you play it in time with different rhythms and make it feel good? And then take the rhythm away and do it by yourself. That's to me when you feel like you've really got. Or we take it a step further down the road, you're talking about arpeggios. Now, what if I were to take our boot camp example? Let's see here. So when you hear somebody play through arpeggios like that, and you're like, oh, that sounds good. Maybe I'm doing... D minor 7, D7, forgot the progression. I could do all that because my internal sense of time is going a 1, 2, 3, 4, a 1, 2, 3, 4. I didn't do it in a way that was like... right? Because I was trying to make the basis of what I was going to play have an underlying pulse. So many times I'd have, when I used to teach private lessons 15 years ago, somebody would come in, they go, yeah, I could play a G, and I could play a C, and I could play a D. And I'm like, okay, can we play this? They couldn't, because they had never put that rhythmic part to them. So what's interesting is we focus so much for a right-handed player, what's happening down here in our left hand, that we often neglect this. That's why I also made the funk rhythm playbook thing, because that style of playing isn't just for playing funk rhythm. It works its way into everything. You know, I would get young kids who wanted to play Green Day or Blink-182. And I was like, great, if we're going to do that, we're going to play the shit out of it. And we're going to go. That's funk rhythm right there. 2E, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a... The thing that makes that sound good is this. And all I'm doing is putting my hand down. So a lot of people don't see the bigger picture. They say, it's funk rhythm, but it's really a right hand training device is the secret to it all. That's why my acoustic courses on TrueFire were all about strumming, because it's putting that stuff that you did down here together. So ultimately, if you need to go back and say, man, let me see if I can really nail some of these easy examples Corey has, then you're going to see like, oh, okay, this is the foundation here of where I need to go back and kind of like retool a little bit. And that's good, and a good revelation if you have it, and if you decide to jump into some easy lessons but really nail the rhythm. If you could do it by yourself and somebody in the other room goes, oh, that's starting to sound like something, you know, you did it right. So cool. Yeah, there's a lot we could talk about on that, but really pay attention to the rhythmic aspect of anything I teach as much as you can.
Thank you. I will. I'll go back and check out some of those easier classes and just kind of just groove on that and get it down.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like to our friend Ted on the drum and stuff, they teach a lot. A good drum teacher worth their salt will say, play this groove for 10 minutes. And it becomes this internalized thing. That's the beauty of drummers, is they're not necessarily focusing on harmonic things where we are. We have to focus on harmony and rhythm and melody, whereas they don't necessarily. Now, some esoteric drummers I will have arguments with. I won't argue because I agree with them that a drum set can be melodic. Sure, I had drummers that would be boom, 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 play stuff like that. But by and large, their job is not to do what we're doing, which is what makes it all work. So I like to get that out of the way. But good question, good stuff.
Thanks, Corey. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I love that you guys are even considering this. This is good because it means that we're gonna keep growing with each other for sure. I got another screen going. I can't find my mouse. There we go.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Well, James, your hand's been up for a while. You want to jump in here?
Well, what I was going to say was I was going to talk about the funk rhythm course, just to let Corey know that I've been struggling with the rhythm, something I'm really working on, and taking that course is just great. The whole getting the scratch down, and it's a blast. I'm not into funk. It's not what I'm about at all. But in terms of working on the rhythm, if everybody here wants to really concentrate on rhythm, that funk rhythm course is fantastic. It's just wonderful. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Awesome. Thanks, James. I appreciate you being an advocate for that because, teaching in this platform online, I can come at things from a bunch of different angles. And that's just one angle. I'm going to try to migrate, in the years to come, some of that acoustic TrueFire stuff over here because that's going to be helpful for people too. But if you're playing a funky Freddie King song, if you're, let me try to think of one. It's like, like Big-Legged Woman. Yeah, 3, 4. There's my hand, right? I love the tip. I love the top. Love it, baby, like it. A hard love slop. You're a big-leg woman. So that's what that course will help. And that's a swung 16th, like we show in the back. That's swung 16th notes as opposed to straight 16th notes, which we talk about extensively in the course. So good stuff, James. Thanks for bringing that up. Oh, thanks, Doug. Saw you jump in there, being very kind. Appreciate that. Nice.
And
yeah, go ahead.
Corey,
Steve.
did you see that one about Guitar Pro? So Steve was asking about, is Guitar Pro useful, and what are your thoughts on Guitar Pro?
I love Guitar Pro. It's kind of the only thing of its type that works the way it does, I guess. I heard, who did I talk to? Oh, somebody said there's somebody I know that's writing a book on Guitar Pro. That would be cool. I'd get a lot out of that. I use it a couple of different ways. That's where we get our transcriptions from. That's how I write them, or how one of our transcribers uses it. And it's cool because you can really dive deep as you want. I mean, you can get the thing to play back, through pedals if you want, virtual pedals. The sounds are antiquated sounds because they're coming off of your sound card, so they're general MIDI sounds. So very, archaic sounding guitar, keyboards, and bass, and that sort of thing. What I really like is, you buy that, but then you got to buy another subscription to the My Songbook thing, and I do that because sometimes I like to look at songs and transcriptions, and there's people that have written and submitted full scores of a particular song. So if you want to learn the bass part to Smoke on the Water, it's in there. And not every song in the world is in there, but a lot of popular, rock songs will be in there for sure, and pop tunes and stuff. For a while, what I was doing was making some like YouTube shorts and stuff where I would use Guitar Pro. I'd send the audio from Guitar Pro into a track, and then I'd play the main guitar part on it. Somebody asked about the Bee Gees Staying Alive thing I did. That was really me playing the guitar part. I had to sound perfect with my old Casino. It was great against the MIDI track. And that clip got 1 million views on Instagram, and people reuse that audio all the time for their own reels. It's like by maybe the hundreds at this point. It was really, really funny. So I like Guitar Pro a lot. Yeah, it's fun if you're trying to learn how to write and read rhythms too. Like you can write your own stuff. And that for me years ago, because I had early versions of Guitar Pro, and that really helped me understand my rhythmic writing a little bit better. It's because it can be tricky. All right.
James, did you re-raise your hand? All right, cool.
Yeah,
we gotcha.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to. I don't have Guitar Pro. I used to have it. I had an older version years and years ago. I don't have it anymore. But there's a program called Sound Slice. It's an online program. It's really inexpensive. I mean, it's almost embarrassing how inexpensive it is. And I think people use it as a teaching tool. But I take your Guitar Pro files, the courses that I'm taking, and you can just upload it into Sound Slice, and there it is. It's not as slick as Guitar Pro. It doesn't sound as good. Guitar Pro, it sounds really good, like you were just saying. Sound Slice won't do that.
Okay.
But in terms of practicing, there it is. It's easy and great and inexpensive.
Well, I'm glad it's inexpensive for the end user.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not inexpensive for us.
Yeah. Last time there was like wildly varying price degrees to work with outside educators and stuff, and that's why people would say, "Well, TrueFire has Sound Slice." I'm like, "Yeah, well, TrueFire can afford it. They put out a course every week, and they're making money on those course sales and those memberships." So yeah,
that's surprising because I originally got the Sound Slice, and it has a free version, so you can dump things into it and play it, but you can't organize it in files and stuff. So I paid the next version up, and it was I can't remember what it was, but it was really inexpensive. So I have file folders. I have all your Guitar Pro things on there, and I use it as a practice source. So.
Cool.
So James, just for fun, because we're here, I wanted to make sure I was still right about this. But yeah, it'd be about $5,000 a month for us to have it on the site. So with the current licensing, so what they do,
you saw my reaction.
So that, and obviously, there's obviously, if you have 100,000 users, I'm sure there's negotiation to that, but. At some point, but it's also why we like Guitar Pro, because Guitar Pro is relatively inexpensive to the end user for the features you get. And then if you upgrade, they always have an upgrade path that's much less expensive. And then it just, like you said, you get the features and actually a lot more flexibility in Guitar Pro. But that's why you see a lot of independent music creators using Guitar Pro over Sound Slice, and because it's more features, but it's also a more attainable situation for everybody, the teacher and the students at that point.
I used to have Guitar Pro, and it's great. It sounds good. I used to play, with it. I'm still on. Okay. But I think the Sound Slice, why it's so inexpensive for individual users, is because I'm not teaching. I don't have X number of students and that kind of stuff. But I guess for the other people in here, if they don't have Guitar Pro, the Sound Slice as an individual user is relatively inexpensive, and it still works with Corey's lessons.
Right, so. Totally, 100%.
No, I mean that's use whatever resources you can to get to your own personal finish line. That's what I'm all about, for sure. Yeah. So Steve, I think we got a couple left in the chat, and then we can probably wrap it up. What do you
Yeah, we
think?
got Doug asking about insights on humidifying our guitars. He lives in Denver, dry climate. What do you think?
Um, yeah, I think the best place for your guitar when you're not playing it and it's not in a humidified environment is the case. I'm lucky to have my guitars out. Nashville is relatively friendly when it comes to humidity, and I only have to run mine a few times a year when it gets really dry. And I haven't had much trouble with drying out the guitars. But yeah, you know, I think you can, if you have your instruments in a space that's not too vast, that you can you can get pretty moist or moistened enough that the guitars like it. Like, what's it, like 45% humidity, I think is the standard around that. So I have a little little hygrometer up there, just kind of tells me, but I don't really pay much attention to it because it's almost always where it needs to be.
Awesome. Yeah, I know, for when I've had guitars in Bozeman and those drawer areas, definitely, yeah, 40 to 55% relative humidity, kind of like keep it,
Yeah.
keep it, keep it
What's
there, but they
interesting,
deal with that.
once or twice a year in Nashville, like when Steve and I were in California, it was like 20 degrees or colder here. I came back, it got warmer, which was pretty awesome. But today was like 60 in Nashville. And I wanted to open some windows up in the studio because I was like, oh, it's getting warm in here. And I know what will happen as soon as I do that. Everything will change. Every guitar will go out of tune. The necks will move. So I try to let them do that on their own, and but keeping this area consistent as possible. Because about twice a year, I'll grab a guitar and everyone will be sharp because the neck just kind of went ever so slightly, or it bowed. Either way, like something's gonna happen. So I have to, oh man, that's the only argument for having a lot of guitars, is that you have to maintain them. That's the only one. So if you can get through that, you're good. You're good. He says, Richard asks, where's your favorite place in Nashville for good music? I could tell you lots of bad music spots probably too. Now, this place I've been playing a lot lately. I have a residency on and off on Thursdays. In couple different bands have been playing there weekly. There's this restaurateur who has places in Atlanta, Nashville, I think maybe Houston or San Antonio. His name is Ford Fry, and he runs this place in Nashville called Star Rover Sound. And I'll be playing there every Thursday in February. The best sounding stage I've ever been on in a restaurant like that. Beautiful looking, beautiful sounding. The mix is incredible, and it's always good music. One of our favorite spots, the legendary, now it's become a guitar bar of Nashville, the Underdog, best little dive bar you could find. There's always something cool going on there. It's not always good, it's not always bad, but there's always something different and cool. It's not like Broadway of Nashville where there's always cover bands from 10 a.m. till 2, 3 in the morning. That's not my scene. I don't ever go down there. Nashville's downtown in general has become a place that most of us locals avoid for a number of reasons. The energy is just really rough. Like, it feels like a fight's gonna break out at any moment. It's wild. If I go to the Ryman, I obviously have to go downtown, or go to Bridgestone. I have to go downtown. So I don't really venture downtown much. There's a place called East Side Bowl, which is in a bowling alley, and it's the hippest bowling alley ever. It's like, looks like you're transported into like 1977. It's super cool, and I love that kind of decorating. I haven't played there yet, but they always have good music there. The one spot downtown that's always good for stuff that's not pop rock country is Acme Feed and Seed. They always have really good stuff going on there too. For the blues folks, if my boy Johnny is still on here, we got to give a shout out to Papa Turney's Barbecue in Hermitage. It is such a fun place to go. Great barbecue. They got like kind of like a juke joint feel in there. and I like that place a lot too. That's a lot off the top of my head. Those are some of my favorite spots. There's also, you know, more concert type venues that exist. You know, there's so many. You know, City Winery always has good music, but that's more of a national chain. So yeah, hopefully that's a couple good recommendations. And always remember, websites still exist. People say, hey, where are you playing in Nashville? I'm like, it's all on my website. They're like, oh, I didn't even think about a website. It's like funny how deconditioned we are to websites, right, Steve?
Totally, that's so funny. The artist site could probably be down for a whole day. We probably wouldn't even hear something.
Oh no, yeah, no, for sure. But what's cool is we have it figured out to where I can go on my Bands in Town account. I load all the information to the show. It transfers right to my page. And Steve works his WordPress magic, and boom, 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 it's done. So yeah,
awesome.
Well, all right,
I think we're looking pretty good. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, this was great. Good to be back on track with everybody. Some stuff, you know, stuff will come out next month. Working with a couple, you know, it's really hard to get the communication right, but there's some folks that want to do some guest teaching on our site, so maybe that'll happen this year. But I have a list of things that I think are going to be valuable for everybody. I think also the sort of monthly auxiliary lessons, I don't want to say auxiliary, you know, extra lessons, we'll call them, whatever, that are going to come out to just VIPs only. It's going to be really cool because sometimes it's hard to put something in a course that hits everybody with one fell swoop. But these individual lessons will be nice for something to look forward to monthly, in addition to the larger big dump of lessons in a course. And I also want to tell everybody and ask them, like, don't be shy. Like if you said, hey, you know, the more info you give me about what you want to see, the more we'll put out there that is targeting what you're asking for. That's like the main goal. Like I really want to make sure everybody's feeling like they're getting all kinds of stuff that they want. Now, not everything will be for everybody, but hey, that's life. But the more input you guys give me through the community or support at workingclassguitar.com, we'll try to implement it as much as we can. And that's where all the other courses have come from anyway. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah. And did we miss you last time, Steve? Were you on the call? There was a call.
Oh yeah. It's been a couple since I've missed.
Yeah.
So
quick, Doug says anything on triad chord tones and arpeggios. Yes, that's all coming, Doug. Absolutely. I think not this month, but in the very near future, we're going to expand on the triad stuff in numerous ways. So there you go. All right. Well, we should cut it off here. I want to stop the recording. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much for the well wishes. Always great to have everyone that's here, stuck around, or jumped off. And we'll see y'all next month. Take care.
Thanks, Working Class Guitar.